A town square media station serving all of South Jersey. This is 97.3 ESPN, home of the Philadelphia Eagles.
He is hit! He stumbles! He's down!
WENJ HD Millville, Atlantic City. This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
What a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig on a Football Friday edition of Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM. Yes, we are live on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app and on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. The week has been building to this, and we got the news today that everyone has been waiting for with the Eagles. We will get to that in just a moment. So to come on the show at 6:20, Yahoo Sports NFL and college football writer Eric Edholm will dig deeper into some football topics on the NFL, on the Eagles, and I want to get his perspective on the draft because it's looking more and more like the Eagles are going to have not just 3 top picks, but 3 picks that are at least 2 of them pretty high in the draft. The assumption right now, I believe we all understand, is that the Detroit Lions, they're probably have the number 1 pick. They're so bad. They're such a mess. So I don't expect them to relinquish that. But the Dolphins can still be a top 5 bad team. The Colts, they might not make the playoffs at all. And the Eagles are a fringe playoff team as well. So at worst, you're probably going to have, 3 picks in the top 16? That's pretty darn good. So we'll ask Eric at home about all that. Plus, don't forget tonight, the High School Sports Athlete of the Week. We announce this week's winner at 6:50 every Friday night on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. So the High School Athlete of the Week, we will announce it later tonight. Of course, all the votes have been coming in, and I've noticed it's a very, very close vote again between 2 players. 2 players have really run away with this thing in terms of the voting, and we're going to find out at 6:50 tonight who the winner will be. So we will get to all that, as well as you guys chiming in at 609-403-0973 is the text board. You could DM the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Priority messaging, thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. And we are live on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. All right, couple things to hit on here. First of all, the big news of the day, all right, is what happened with the Saints. The Eagles are going to be in a position to win their first home game of the year, thanks to the news that came out today, which was the New Orleans Saints have ruled out Alvin Kamara, Ryan Ramczyk, as well as Teron Armstead. So the Saints will be without their 2 starting tackles and their best offensive playmaker, Alvin Kamara. The Eagles have no excuses to not win this game. Now, I know I said the same thing a few weeks ago when the Eagles played the Lions, but I feel the same way. There is no difference to me between what we saw with the Lions game and this game, because I understand that statistically, the Saints look like the better team, but in reality, the team on the stat sheet is not the team on the field. First of all, they're starting Trevor Siemian, and Taysom Hill is questionable. You're without your 2 starting tackles, and arguably Armstead and Ramczyk are 2 of the 10 best tackles on the planet right now, playing in the NFL. So you'll lose those 2 guys. That'd be the equivalent of the Eagles losing Mailata and Lane Johnson. And by the way, the backup isn't Driscoll, okay? The backup is someone much less. The drop-off from Ramczyk and Armstead to their backups is a huge gap compared to what the Eagles drop off is from Mailata to Dillard. So that's one thing. The other thing is the Kamara situation changes their offense, because at least with Kamara, you got to watch out for the end arounds, the counter plays, him moving out into the slot, him starting in the slot and moving into the backfield. Kamara can play everywhere in an offensive formation. And without him, the Saints offense is going to be incredibly limited. So now the game, as I told you guys yesterday, comes down to the Eagles defensive line versus the Saints offense. And now the Eagles' goal has to be, can we win a knock 'em sock 'em fight? Can we win a game that is going to be ugly? The Eagles have won games where their offense has been the better team on the field. They've won games where their defense has been the better team on the field. But they've only won one ugly game the entire year. That was the Saints game. Every other Eagles game that they have won, the Lions, the Broncos, the Falcons, the offense showed out, the defense played well, and it was a aesthetically pleasing win. Now you got to win a game that is not going to be aesthetically pleasing. The Saints defense is still coming for you. And as I told you guys yesterday, the Saints defense is not unbeatable. But let me tell you something. They're pretty darn good. You can score on this defense, but it's not going to be easy. So this game comes down to, will the Eagles defense put a lock and key on the Saints offense and then take that result on the one side of the ball and parlay that into success on the other side of the ball? That is, to me, the biggest key of this game. This game will come down, ultimately, above all else, to, if the Eagles defense does their job, the Eagles can win this game. Because the Eagles are not going to score 30 or more points on the Saints defense unless there's an injury that happens in the game. I just don't see how it's going to happen otherwise. So, with that understanding being there, with that reality being in the forefront of what is going on, you know what the strategy has to be. You still got to run the ball. You still got to play aggressive defense. You still got to have efficiency from the offensive play caller. You still need to have consistent play calls from the defensive coordinator. This is a game where we're going to find out how much has Sirianni and Gannon and this coaching staff learned this year, and how will they execute that? Because if they win this game, they will have a tiebreaker over two of the teams that coming into this weekend are ahead of them in the playoff standings. They already hold a tiebreaker over the Panthers. Now they can hold a tiebreaker over the Saints. And then the schedule gets very, very manageable. Jets, Giants, bye week, Washington, Giants. I mean, it doesn't get much more accommodating than that. And let's be realistic. If you're the Eagles and the goal is to win games, now it's time to prove it or shut up. Nick Sirianni was hired because the owner of this organization was unhappy. He did not like the Doug Peterson handling of things on multiple levels. You brought in Nick Sirianni. You brought in this youth movement. You brought in all these coaches without experience. Now, let's see what these guys can do. Because guess what? If Doug Peterson was the coach of this football team, I know what the Eagles are doing. I have confidence in what the Eagles are doing. I don't know what the Eagles are doing yet. I have no idea, and neither do you. And that's going to be the great equalizer on Sunday. Nobody knows what Nick Sirianni and Jonathan Gannon and this current regime of the Eagles organization can do when they are handed a game they're supposed to win that is also a must-win. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. We'll dig deeper into the NFL and the NFL draft with Eric Edholm from Yahoo Sports coming up in about 10 minutes from now. Text board is open at 609-403-0973. You can join the conversation through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. We are live on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. Of course, Game Night being brought to you by my friends over at the FanDuel Sportsbook inside Bally's Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City. Get in on all the games you love with all the TVs on the wall, the self-service betting kiosks, and more. Great food. You heard Mike Gill talk about all the amenities they have over at the FanDuel Sportsbook. Will get your game face on and win this weekend. Football, basketball, even hockey if you want to bet that. I mean, the Flyers and Sixers both play tomorrow night. Flyers at 7, Sixers at 10. You might as well maybe throw a little parlay in there, and you could do it all at the FanDuel Sportsbook inside Bally's Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. We'll give you our football preview picks a little bit later in the show as well. So we got a lot to get to throughout the show. I just want to remind everybody really quick, we mentioned the full list of nominees earlier this week. I want to run down their names one more time. Of course, that is the South Jersey High School Athlete nominees of the week. Of course, every Friday night, we give you the winner of the voting, which is over at 973ESPN.com. Your nominees this week, we told you a little bit earlier this week, and of course, you saw their names all throughout the week, but I want to remind everybody who they were. Ray Weed of Absegami, the Braves quarterback who won a big rivalry game over Oakcrest last week. Jaquan Howard, the transfer from Pleasantville, the senior, carried the ball 28 times for 215 yards and 2 touchdowns as Cedar Creek won the South Jersey Group 3 championship. They advanced to the South Jersey championship game against undefeated Delsey. Trevor Cohen, Holy Spirit, carried the ball 15 times, 191 yards, set up 2 scores in the Holy Spirit win. LaQuint Allen of Millville. Millville's playing right now. Millville has a 7-0 lead over Ocean City in the championship game over there. LaQuint Allen, big game last week, 222 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Trey McLear of St. Augustine Prep. Of course, he is the starting quarterback who led the Hermits to a win, and now they have a showdown tonight with Don Bosco Prep. So we will give you the poll results coming up at 6:50 tonight here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Right now, we want to remind everybody about, of course, this weekend on 97.3 ESPN Eagles football. This Sunday, I'll give you my keys to the game further and my pick for the game a little bit later in the hour. But on the other side, Yahoo Sports Eric Edholm would join us to dig deeper into the Eagles, the NFL, the NFL draft, and more right here on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. And we are live on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night.
This is the radio home for Philadelphia Eagles football. It's week 11 of the 2021 season with the Eagles hosting the New Orleans Saints.
Now what do the Saints do?
Hey, what the Eagles do a nice job of rallying to the football. Now, they understand the importance of this football game.
Pre-game coverage begins this Sunday at noon. Merrill and Mike call all the action starting at 1. This is where the Eagles play. 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's Eagles station.
week's featured bet is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's Atlantic City. In college football, take UCLA to cover 3.5 versus USC. Bet all the action in style at FanDuel Sportsbook inside Bally's Atlantic City. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
We're going to dig deeper now into all the NFL stuff. Not just the Eagles, but the fact of the NFL draft. The Eagles are potentially going to have 3 first-round picks, so we'll get into all of that and more. Yahoo Sports Eric Edholm joins us right now on the phone line to get deeper into all the football topics as we get ready for another football weekend. NFL Week 11 is here. We are just a couple weeks away from the conference championship games in college football. Eric, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, my man. What's going on?
I'm doing pretty good. And I want to start with a little bit of a big picture question for you. And that is, this is turning into a very winnable game for the Eagles this Sunday with both Ramczyk and Armstead and Kamara all out for the Saints. I mean, the Saints barely have anybody on offense at this point, which means the Eagles are still in the running for that 7 seed in the NFC playoffs. So I ask you, do we give credit to the Eagles for being in a position like this to maybe have a chance to make the postseason? Or do we say, look, the NFC is so mediocre this year, it's an indictment of the league right now?
Well, it's I think there's still, it's funny. You could say the same thing about the AFC too, right? I mean, the volume of teams is pretty impressive, but boy, I mean, who's your number one contender on that side? So, I look big picture and I say to myself, okay, I mean, let's not go overboard in our praise in the sense that their wins are not mind-blowing on any level, but they've scored more points than they've allowed. They've been a little bit back and forth, up and down, but you're right. After this week, I mean, I would say the improvement of Jalen Hurts is notable. I think you have to factor that into your analysis of the team, even if he's, not throwing it or not, having it in his hands quite as much. But some of it, I think it's easy to sort of look league wide and say, there aren't that many good teams out there, but there's a lot in the middle class. So I wouldn't discount it.
You mentioned the growth of Jalen Hurts. He's become a bit of a talking point in this area. And obviously because Philadelphia loves to, you hand them a bag of money and they say it's too heavy. But listen, to me, you and I talked about this before. I'm not thrilled with the quarterback class. And to me, I don't feel like anybody who is going to be available in the draft this year is really that much better than what Jalen Hurts could be. So talk about what you have seen from Hurts from when he was in college to what he is now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was exciting to see the progress he made throughout his college career. Very unusual career too, right? I mean, freshman starter for a championship team and obviously a running quarterback first who was given some simple passing assignments. You start to see some improvement then. Tua Tagovailoa passes him on the depth chart in the middle of a national championship game. And it had been coming for a little while too, but at the same time, certainly the kind of thing that, I think at the time people thought, all right, well, Hurts will always be a nice college quarterback. He'll go elsewhere. Sticks around Bama for a year, then goes to Oklahoma, has his flash season, his breakout year. And, the difference in him throwing the football from year 1 to year 4 was significant. But you also saw plenty of scheme advantages and talent advantages that he had at both schools, Oklahoma and Alabama. You saw him holding on to the ball, longer than almost any quarterback in college football. And he could do it because of his athleticism, but I think it probably got him into some bad habits. He didn't need to be super precise on those downfield passes in college because he had athletes who could go get the ball. He didn't need to worry about, can the offensive line hold up? Because most times he could either evade the sack or, buy enough time to get the ball off or that sort of thing, or use his legs as a weapon. But obviously those things had to be cleaned up. There were so many intangibles and tangibles that were exciting about him. Thick build, athletic frame, has arm talent, right? It's not in question there, but the question was, how soon do you play him? What kind of system is he going to be in? And will he have sort of the commensurate level of talent to make up for some of his deficiencies. So it wasn't a perfect scenario he entered into. He was kind of thrown in there awkwardly, probably out of need at first. And he took his lumps early this year and has made strides, and to the point where I think they've found a little bit of a groove now where, they know what he does well and what he doesn't do quite as well. So, to your other point about the college class, you're not alone in that thinking. I mean, NFL people don't want to dismiss this group, but there's no Trevor Lawrence. There's no Justin Fields. There may not be anything close to a Trey Lance. Last year's top 5, if we mash the 2 quarterbacks with this year's, or the 2 classes of quarterbacks, I still think the top 5 is last year's top 5. I don't know.
Right.
I'm not convinced that any of the quarterbacks in this class could have gone higher than Mac Jones or Fields or any of those guys.
And the other thing is, I don't think anybody in this class, Eric, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think any of them are really like day one ready. They all need development. They all need help. To me, I mean, for example, I love Malik Willis. I think he's got incredible upside, but to me, he's a little like Trey Lance, though. He's going to need a year or 2 or 3 to really get rolling.
Or like Hurts. I mean, there's some similarities between their games. I mean, I think they're different in some respects too. But yeah, I mean, I would say Kenny Pickett, given that he's started, I don't know, about 114 games in college football, feels like it anyway. I would say he could be your poor man's Mac Jones in some respects. I think he plays a little bit more like Kirk Cousins, just watching him, kind of a rhythm thrower.
I'm so glad you said that. I've been telling people Pickett reminds me of Kirk Cousins. He's going to make the throw that makes sense. He's not going to wow you to death, but he's not going to make a ton of mistakes.
Right. And he can go vertical and he can take some chances, but he's not going to do it. I've heard Joe Burrow, other people say he's not that athletic, I don't think. I mean, Joe's a good runner, I would say, not a great one, but yeah, I mean, somewhere in that spectrum is where he lies. And Kirk has been the guy that I've sort of landed on the most. So I agree with you there. And, I think in the right system, he can be a nice quarterback. Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. I don't care what anybody else says. I mean, he may come up small in some big situations. He may not have the body of work of a frontline guy or the upside of a Herbert or something like that, but you can win with him. Right. And he's been to the playoffs before. So that's kind of what I view him as. So I think he could step in early, whether it's week 1, somewhere in the first half of the next season. But yeah, other than that, maybe Matt Corral, maybe, Willis. I'm like you. I think you gotta let him develop on the side. He'd be great for a team like Atlanta, which is kind of tied to Matt Ryan for another year financially, and watch and learn, come in, make some plays, the change up guy. But it's got to be a nice situation where he's not forced in the lineup.
Sticking with the quarterbacks, and I'm not saying this to be derogatory toward him, but I'm asking this genuinely. Am I the only one who looks at Sam Howell and it reminds me of the last year of Sam Darnold at USC?
Interesting. I don't think he's the off script kind of player that Darnold was. Like, the thing about Darnold that got everybody excited was that, when plays broke down, he could make some wild plays on his own, and he'd also get you in trouble, throw across his body, put it in harm's way, throw in traffic. He did stuff that you thought, get him with a good quarterback coach. All the talent is there. He's a tough kid. It'll work itself out. I fell for the cheese on Darnold. I liked him coming out, even though, you make note of all the mistakes you see and all this stuff. But I felt like I probably overrated his arm talent a little bit. I probably overrated maybe his athleticism and his toughness a little bit. To date, he's clearly shown some mental blocks or whatever. I don't know that I see that same type of player with Howell, but Baker Mayfield's the one that a lot of people in the league have compared him to in terms of body size, running ability, deep ball touch. It's occasionally brilliant, and the thing about Sam is that he's been playing behind a bad offensive line, and he's gotten the tar knocked out of him this year. It's tough because you got to evaluate a guy who lost his top 2 receivers and his top 2 running backs and has really no pass protection in front of him. And then compare it to last year when he had the goods and it looked a lot better. How do you justify that? How do you rectify, the difference in play? To me, he's improved as a runner. He's shown some real toughness and poise. The production isn't quite the same. He's been a little bit riskier with the ball, but I don't quite go there, but I see where you're headed. I don't think it's too far off.
Eric Edholm joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN at Eric_Edholm on Twitter. Check out all of his coverage of the NFL and the NFL draft with Yahoo Sports. Eric, digging a little deeper into what's going on with the Eagles right now. I've been saying, now, I know this is not 100% a possibility, but to me, if you're going to have 3 first-round picks, I think there's only one way the Eagles should go, and that's just 3 straight defensive players, because to me, it's obvious that whatever defense Gannon is trying to run at times, he doesn't have the personnel for it. And there's one guy in this draft that if I'm the Eagles, I'm going all in. I don't care what I got to do to get him. And that's Thibodeau from Oregon, because this team needs a freakazoid who can be a disruptor on defense.
Yeah. And, if I would guess that if the draft were today, there'd be a better chance of a defensive player going first overall and possibly second overall too, than there would be a quarterback or some other position, offensive skill guy or something like that. So it's an unusual draft this year from what I can tell right at this moment. It's going to be heavy on D linemen, pass rushers, cornerbacks, which is great if you need those things, especially for a team like the Eagles. I would also suggest that Aiden Hutchinson from Michigan is – I know one guy who likes him more than Thibodeau. I mean, I don't know if that's a prevailing thought in the scouting world because I haven't talked to enough people about it. But I will say that there's a real appreciation for just how complete a player he is, and – somebody mentioned Chris Long the other day. Remember, Chris was on some bad Rams defenses and was racking up 13, 14 sacks. He became a different player by the time he arrived in Philly, but style-wise, very similar in some respects. And he's actually at times been more dominant consistently this year. Thibodeau's been a little banged up too. So it's a fascinating debate. I still think more people would go the Thibodeau direction. You also have, a corner down at LSU who hasn't played a full season, but he's played a lot in the past in Derek Stingley Jr. He might be worthy of a top 5 pick. Kyle Hamilton, the safety. I know you guys don't draft safeties or linebackers in round 1 very often, but I'm just saying he could be one of those unusual players. Safety may not be up there on the priority list, but when you have somebody who can cover as much ground as he can and tackle Leatherwood blitz if he needs to, I mean, that's your guy.
I feel like Hamilton would be a probably like one of those like space linebackers though for Gannon's defense. He wouldn't be the traditional safety because I mean I haven't watched every Notre Dame game, but I feel like of the 5 Notre Dame games I've actually sat down and watched, I feel like he's just everywhere. He's got it. I'm not saying he is this guy, but he reminds me a little bit of what Isaiah Simmons was at Clemson. Yeah,
I mean, maybe not quite as freaky athletically. I mean, Simmons was just a different animal. But Kyle Hamilton might be a smarter football player. He might be a little bit more of an instinctive player. I mean, Simmons can do things that very few players can do athletically. He has been a quick learner at times. That's a pretty good role comparison there too. I mean, the fact that you want to keep him in the box to help defend the run, especially against like an option team like Navy. Sure, let's do it. You want to have him play center field against a North Carolina, knowing Sam Howell's going to try to attack you deep. Sure, absolutely. You want him to cover a tight end or spy an athletic quarterback. He can do that too. I mean, that's what makes him so appealing is that he truly is a do-it-all kind of guy. Safeties have really been a tough one for the league. You look at the top of the draft and some of the first couple safeties that go off don't always match the hype, but in the hands of the right defensive coordinator in the right scheme with the right people around him, he could be really, really good.
Eric Edholm from Yahoo Sports joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN at Eric_Edholm on Twitter. Eric, speaking of linebacker, I feel like I would probably say about 80 to 90% of Eagle fans hate the current group of Eagles linebackers. So who are the linebackers that would be worth drafting in the first round?
Yeah, I mean, a couple come to mind for me anyway. I mean, again, it's early, but Devin Lloyd from Utah, I kind of got hip to him this summer a little bit. He got good grades in the spring grades that teams filed in, and kind of caught my eye a little bit when I kept seeing over and over him kind of, after I'd had conversations and people shared information with me, just the early look at the 2022 class before the season. And I watched the opener, and he's got 12 tackles, a forced fumble, and a diving interception. You go, okay, here we go, right? Buckle up. And he's been nothing short of brilliant since then. I mean, he could be your Buckus Award winner. He's I think, a special player. I mean, he could play the Mike. He could play the Will, I think. It'd be a little bit big for that spot, but I could see him. He's got the athletic ability. Nakobe Dean from Georgia, people are obviously starting to watch this historic Georgia defense and are kind of blown away by the talent and depth, especially after having 6 guys drafted on that side of the ball a year ago. But, yeah, Dean is somebody you can't miss. I mean, he's not big. He's small by even, modern standards, 6 foot, 220 pounds or something like that. And was less than that in the spring. I mean, he was like 210, I want to say. So, if you don't mind having a safety size guy at linebacker, and obviously some teams have been able to make it work, Deion Jones and guys like that, Devondre Campbell's playing a big role for the Packers. He's about 226, I want to say. Yeah. That's a great way to keep 2 linebackers on the field, let's say, and still be able to cover backs and tight ends and work in the pass game. He's got incredible speed laterally and moving forward, backward. His striking ability is terrific. He's great. And he had a pick 6 was it 2 weeks ago, I want to say. He's really grown on me, and it's been fun watching him play. Those are kind of the first 2 that come to mind. I mean, there's some pass rushers in college who will have to be more off the ball in the NFL, but more traditional linebacker role, those are 2 guys that come to mind. Brian Asamoah, I wouldn't say is up there, but he's going to get a lot more love from Oklahoma than I think people realize. He could be a top 50 pick, let's say, maybe on the outskirts of round 1, and there are more. I mean, there are other guys, but those are the first ones that come to mind.
Eric, before I let you go, transition a little back more to the NFL game. I want to know your perspective on the rookie quarterbacks so far, because I feel like right now it's looking more and more that people don't understand, or maybe they don't accept enough, whatever term you want to use for that, environment matters. Like if Mac Jones was in Jacksonville and Trevor Lawrence was in New England, it's not like it would be that much different, right? So like, to me, I'm having trouble sitting here saying, well, Zach Wilson is this, well, Justin Fields is that, or any of this stuff, because I feel like the environment that some of these guys walked into, it was a no-win situation.
It was almost like you were listening to my segment up in Montreal about an hour and a half ago, because this is virtually what I said. I mean, which was, they were sort of asking me, would you say you've been disappointed with the Trevor Lawrences and Zach Wilsons and Trey Lance? We haven't seen Trey Lance play, right? Jimmy's played better lately, and they had a package for him. They didn't know what to do with him. He got a little banged up. Zach Wilson, obviously injury as well. Kind of a curious situation there. They've swapped quarterbacks, and Wilson's working his way back. He was throwing picks left and right before that. Some of it is a style adjustment too. I mean, I think Wilson had a great quote about taking chances to knowing what he could and couldn't get away with, and I appreciated that. With Trevor, it's not like you don't see the talent, right? It's the fact that the offensive line has been, at times atrocious, other times merely bad. That they're kind of cobbling an offensive system together. They lose DJ Shark in the early in the year. So, a combination of factors. Justin Fields, 2 different play callers, a banged up offensive line also, Montgomery out for part of the year. So there's lots of different, what situation was better than having Bill Belichick, Josh McDaniels, a slew of tight ends and receivers that they add in the offseason? They've invested heavily in their offensive line. Did you watch the defense last night? You know how good they, not you, anybody, right? So no doubt, if you land in a place like that as a rookie and you're thrust into a starting role, everything's made a little bit easier because of the coaching and the talent around you. So that's why I agree with you 100% on this. I don't think you can make any kind of snap judgment on Wilson at this point. You have no idea what Trey Lance is going to become. I think Trevor's fine. He'll be good. Really, 3 years is the number. We get a little impatient, though. It's easy to slip into the hot take immediate reaction. So it definitely does matter where you land and what's around you.
Yeah, just look at Josh Allen. It's a perfect example of a guy who year one, right, Eric? It was just like, we don't know. And a few years later, he's an MVP candidate.
Yep. What was it? 13 touchdowns, 14 picks or whatever it was. I mean, he was decent one game and pretty bad the next, and one off season, adding a few players, learning the playbook inside and out, seeing what defenses are doing against you can make a world of a difference. Justin Fields next year could be an MVP. I mean, I don't think he's that good, but you know what I mean? Like, that's how big a jump these guys can take.
He's Eric Edholm. Give him a follow on Twitter at Eric_Edholm. Yahoo Sports for all the NFL and NFL draft coverage. Great coverage with him over there with Yahoo Sports. And he joined us right here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Eric, always appreciate the time and the conversation.
You got it, buddy. Talk to you soon. Have a good weekend.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN, being brought to you by my friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook inside Bally's Hotel and Casino, Atlantic City. We'll get to your guys' thoughts and comments on the other side and football picks for the weekend. Plus, we will announce the winner of the South Jersey High School Sports Athlete of the Week. And I can confirm, because I looked during the break at the final vote totals, the winner of this week won by one vote. One vote. It literally was a one vote difference this week. So we will tell you the winner of that and more, plus my pick for the Eagles game this Sunday right here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of Seattle City, and we are live on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. I'm Josh Hennig, and this is Game Night.
Saturday morning in the locker room with Billy Schwein, we have a lot to talk about. Bryce Harper's MVP award, Sunday's Eagles-Saints matchup at the Link. We'll recap the Flyers-Tampa Bay game. Mike Carlin joins me in the studio to talk about the Sixers and college basketball. The sportsbook consigliere Dave Sharapan checks in from Vegas with his six-pack of picks for this weekend's big games. It's the locker room with Billy Schwein, Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to noon on 97.3 ESPN and the mobile app.
With GMF approval excludes Corvette.
Before you sell or trade your vehicle, you should go to Bennett Chevy and get the most for your trade. This month, Bennett Chevy starts the bidding on trades at $7,000. Yes, Bennett will give you a minimum $7,000 for any old clunker you can push, pull, or tow towards any pre-owned vehicle in stock. And remember, we'll buy yours even if you don't buy ours. And if we start at $7,000 for junk, how much more do you think we'll pay for a good running vehicle? Grab your title or payment book and get the absolute most for your trade today. Want a brand new vehicle? While others are charging a fortune for new vehicles, Bennett still rejects any opportunity to charge 1 penny over MSRP. Stuck in a lease? Bennett can get you out early. All makes and models. So come see what your vehicle's worth today at Bennett, where there's absolutely no obligation and no pressure, because our non-commissioned sales staff is paid based on your satisfaction, not how much you spend. Find new roads at Bennett Chevy, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
That's a no-whip, high-foam, 170-degree, sugar-free gingerbread latte.
Ah, yes, it's gingerbread latte season at Duchesne's Coffee Shop. He'll need a seasonal barista before his cookie starts to crumble.
Anything else? Oh, there's a list.
Indeed can help him hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Instant Match instantly connects you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your sponsored job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
With Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night, 97.3 ESPN. I'll give you my pick for the Eagles game, and then we'll give you the football picks in just a bit. Of course, it's all brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook Inside Bally's Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City. Get in all the games you love. Experience the best environment that Atlantic City has to offer with all their large TVs, the great food and drink. Mike Gill talked about that self-service beer wall. I mean, that sounds like a pretty cool feature if you haven't been over there. Also, don't forget the self-service betting kiosks and more. Get in on all the games you love this weekend at the FanDuel Sportsbook inside Bally's Hotel and Casino off the boardwalk, Atlantic City. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, before we get to the football picks, as promised, I want to get you guys the high school athlete of the week in South Jersey. We give you the voting each week. I told you guys this came down to a one-vote difference. One vote separated two players at the end of the day. A large voting turnout, but one vote made the difference. So, whatever your opinion is about voting, in this case, the vote matters, right? So, but seriously, congratulations. First of all, second place. Trevor Cohen missed out on this by one vote. The Holy Spirit Spartan player, he was one vote off of winning this week. So, congratulations to him for his phenomenal season, Holy Spirit. But the winner this week by one vote was Jaquan Howard of Cedar Creek. And of course, Cedar Creek plays in the South Jersey Group 3 championship game tomorrow against Delsey. So congratulations to Jaquan Howard from Cedar Creek for being the South Jersey High School Sports Athlete of the Week. And keep it tuned to 973ESPN.com, the 973 ESPN mobile app each week, where we will let you know the nominees. Because when football season is done, we're going to be getting the basketball season, all kinds of other sports popping off. And of course, we'll have all kinds of ways for you to recognize the great athletes here in South Jersey. All right. So let's get into the Eagles game. I told you guys earlier, the Eagles game to me comes down to this. Can the Eagles defense put a lock key, just a complete lockdown on the Saints offense, as anemic and as shorthanded as they are? If the answer is yes, then the Eagles win. And I think that this team has found some things. They have started to figure some things out. And I think I'm very comfortable at this point in time with everything I know and everything I understand. I think the Eagles win this game 20-16. 20-16 is what I think the Eagles games will come down. I think the Eagles are going to win a rock fight with the New Orleans Saints. I think the Saints defense will limit them, but I think the Eagles will have more offensive opportunities than the Saints will, because the Saints, without their two starting tackles and Alvin Kamara, I think the Eagles should and need to win this game, because this is the game where you prove who you are. What kind of team, what kind of football team you are going to be, not just this year, but for years to come. All right, let's get you some previews for the football weekend here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig hanging out with you on a Football Friday here. A Couple games this weekend. Of course, you can hear this one on 97.3 ESPN tomorrow at noon, following the locker room with Billy Schweim. Ohio State versus Michigan State. I know a lot of people are doing a lot of chatter about the line, plus 19.5. But the number I like the most is 68.5. That's the over-under. Michigan State has one of the worst pass defenses in college football. And Ohio State's defense is average on a good day. I think this is going to be one of those like 38, 35, 45, 35 kind of games. I think ultimately Ohio State wins. I'm just not confident whether they cover or not. So to me, I feel it's a safer play if you want to make a play on this game to take the over 68.5. Other college football action I'm going to be keeping an eye on this Saturday. The Cincinnati SMU game screams close game. Remember, Cincinnati had a close game with Navy earlier this year. So I like SMU to cover the 9.5. I think Cincinnati ultimately wins, but I think it's going to be a very, very close game. I also think the 20.5 is too much for Arkansas versus Alabama. I think Arkansas is too good of a football team to get crushed by an Alabama team that struggled with LSU. Other action I'm keeping an eye on, as you heard, my pick of the week is UCLA to cover versus USC. USC without two of their best players on offense in this game. I think UCLA is the fresher and the better team coming into this matchup. And then with the NFL, oh, by the way, Oregon State at home, plus 2.5. I don't know why Arizona State's favored on the road, but give me Oregon State at home. I really like this Oregon State team this year. They played way above people's expectations. In the NFL, I expect the Browns to destroy the Lions. No Jared Goff. The Browns, they're at least healthier and a better football team at this point. 12.5 is a big number, but I like it for this game. I gotta say, I like the Panthers. I like the Panthers to cover the 3. Washington football team's defense is not good at all. Of course, you heard my pick for the Eagles game. That means they cover the 2.5 point spread in that game. And of course, Raiders, Bengals, give me the over 50. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night. Have a great weekend, everybody.
It's Sixers basketball tomorrow on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the 76ers, Tom McGinnis, calling all the exciting play-by-play action.
Here's Burkott from FDR Park, and it's in. Burkott, Korkmaz from deep.
The Sixers are in Portland to face the Blazers. Coverage begins at 10 p.m. Philadelphia 76ers basketball on your radio home of the Sixers in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN.